All right, greetings everyone. So I am Stephen McBride. I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Student Success here for the College of Engineering. And some of the things that we've been working on since I began my tenure in January are trying to figure out how we can better support our students, better support those relationships between faculty members and students, especially around mentoring. And we do have our mentoring fellows with us that have been working really hard all year, trying to evaluate the status of mentoring in our college, see how we can improve those relationships with advisors and students, and find ways that we can benchmark our success. So we are joined by Rachel and Emily today, two of our mentoring fellows. Suzanne was not able to be with us, and we also have two faculty mentors as well that have been helping out a bunch. One of the things that they worked on really hard over the last 6+ months has been a new individual development plan for the College of Engineering. Now, a couple of schools already had their own, and some have been developing ones over the last few years, but we wanted to at least have something generic that could be used for any student in the college to pick up, whether they're a brand new student or if they've been here for a while. And so today, I want to turn it over to them to tell a little bit about creating individual development plans, how to use them, and what to do as a student or as a faculty member to make sure that students are achieving the career goals that they want and that they're successful while at Purdue. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to our mentoring fellows.
Hi everyone, thank you Stephen for the introduction. So today we will be talking a little bit about what is an individual plan, why is it important, talk a little bit more about, well, given that you have an IDP, what is your responsibility as a student versus what are the responsibilities of your mentors, whether they are a research mentor or your personal faculty member that serves as your advisor, how to take control of your career given in the IDP, and we'll go over a little bit of a demo so that you can understand sort of, well, now that you explain what it is and how to use it, how do I actually go about developing it? And then we'll go over questions, so if you have those, please save them until the end, and then we'll go over any final remarks. So to kick us off, what exactly is an individual development plan? Well, an IDP is a tool to help graduate students access and plan around your goals and needs. So this might be, you have some skills that you know you already have, but there are skills that you want to develop. I mean, after all, you are here pursuing a higher degree because you want more skills to have that career of your dreams. What interests do you have as a graduate student? What are your strengths and what are your goals? Goals by meaning your research goals, your academic goals, and your career goals. All of this becomes a cohesive plan that we call the individual development plan. So why exactly is it important to build an individual development plan? Well, first of all, it helps you identify both your strengths and your weaknesses. What are your short-term and long-term goals? Right now, you can say, well, my goal is to improve my GPA. So you know that you want to take some courses for that. Or you might say, well, I want to take an internship next summer. Well, to get that internship, how will you get there? What are those goals that you need to accomplish? Is it networking? Is it creating your resume or a CV? It's also a visual representation or a reminder of when do you set the time to accomplish those goals. If it's a long-term goal, let's say you want to accomplish your dissertation if you're a PhD student, and you roughly want to meet it around your 5th year, well, that's a goal that you're going to write into your individual development plan. And it helps you keep track that, okay, by 5th year, my goal is to have that dissertation. Or if it's a short-term goal, you might say, well, I want to accomplish working on my CV and have my advisor revise it. And I want to accomplish that before the end of November, because that's when most of the companies are looking for interns for next summer. Well, that would go under your IDP. And you would use that IDP over time to keep track of what your goals are and when you want to accomplish them. It's also helpful as a grad student to keep your IDP because then you can say, hey, I accomplished this already. Usually grad students tend to go sometimes through something like the imposter syndrome. You compare yourself to your peers, whether it be in your lab or your peers in your classes, and you say, hey, like that student is doing so much and I haven't done much. But if you look at your IDP, you're able to say, wow, I actually accomplished this already. I've done that. And it helps you remember like you're also thriving in your graduate studies. It can also serve as a communication tool between your faculty advisor and yourself or any other mentors you might have. So we have seen from some of the studies that we've done in the back of the end that sometimes these mentorship relationships aren't the best because students don't know what to expect. They don't know, well, what can I get out of my advising relationship? Why is my mentor here to help me? Like, can I actually talk to them about this or not? Well, when you go through building an IDP, you're able to say, hey, this is an area that I need to grow further in. And so maybe it's time that I have a conversation with my advisor because I really want to focus on addressing that. Or it might just be, hey, like my advisor feels like I'm not accomplishing my milestones enough. But if I go back to my IDP, I can say, well, I already accomplished this by this month. Right now, I'm going through something that is a little bit of a limitation in terms of how fast can I work. As you can see from my timeline.
Okay, Don.
Everything else and
See you
it's
later.
and so you reassure your advisors that you will continue to do a good job. And then, of course, the newest thing is that some of the departments in the College of Engineering are now requiring one. For example, the Industrial Engineering Department, I'm an industrial engineering student. The IDP is part of our graduate seminar. So that's why it's important to understand, like, how do you build one and, like, what can you use it for? So going into, well, you have an IDP. Well, what do I do next? Well, as a student, you want to build an IDP because you can take charge of your own academic and professional development. You can list down what courses have you taken, what skills have you gained out of your courses. But if your goal is to go into academia or industry or any other place as an area of work, well, that is only a plan that you can build, not your mentor. No one's going to come in and say, this is what you should do. No one's going to tell you, hey, I really expect you to become a professor when you graduate, or I expect you to go work at this company because all of my students go there. The only person who can define what do you want to do after completing your academic courses here in your degree is you. And so the IDP helps you track of, well, what do you want and what does that look like and how will you reach it? It also helps you to see, well, now that I've built the IDP, I see that there are some areas that I need to improve in, whether it be your writing or you need to learn how to network better. How do you have this dining etiquette for some of those dinners with companies? And so the IDP helps you track of how can you accomplish those things that you want to improve in, and then hold yourself accountable. You can write in your IDP, hey, I attended this professional development seminar. I attended this writing class, and now I've improved on this, this, and this. It also is a way of helping you seek regular feedback in terms of your performance. So you might say, hey, I know that I have a friend in my department and they're in their second year of their master's or they're in their fourth year of their PhD. And I feel like I'm not working at the same pace as they are. Well, you take your IDP where you have down, like, what do you want to accomplish? What have you accomplished already? And then you have that conversation of saying, well, what do I need to improve on? And if I don't know what are those areas, then maybe I can talk to my advisor and say, hey, like, this is what I would like to do. I see that other students are already accomplishing this and I haven't. Is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that you think I should improve on? And it's also a way to just hold yourself accountable and being a responsible person to say, like, I'm making sure that not only am I meeting my goals, but also like managing my time well. Avoiding that procrastination that sometimes is so hard to avoid. As a mentor, the IDP is very important because you're able to review the IDP with your student and provide that feedback that they need. Your advisor should ideally be tracking your progress and periodically having conversations with you, whether it be a weekly meeting, a bi-weekly meeting. That's the way that they're able to say, hey, this student's making those accomplishments and I need to recognize them for it, because I see that in their IDP at the beginning of the semester, they talked about wanting to finish this or submitting that paper for a presentation, and they have. It's also the mentor should be there to support your goals. And so a mentor can't read your mind. So if you have an IDP where you say, these are my goals for my degree, these are my goals by the end of the semester or by the end of the year, a mentor will be able to better understand how to help you. And that just overall will improve your mentorship relationship, because you as a student know what you want, and your mentor will know how to get you there, how to help you accomplish those goals. Maybe it's sometimes that it's not necessarily them who can help you. Maybe they know someone else who might be able to connect you with that company that you really want to work at. I know my advisor did. We talked about how I wanted to intern at Johnson & Johnson, and he had a friend who already worked there. So it was talking about, this is my goal, and maybe he couldn't help me see the faculty member, but he knew of someone that he could connect me, and it was helpful because we addressed that IDP at the beginning of the year. So how does the IDP relate to, again, focusing on your career? Well, the IDP can help you reflect on, who do you see yourself as? Is it by acknowledging that I have these certain skills? It's that I have these abilities. It's the way that you can say, this is how I see myself, and then compare it to the real self, which is just the way of saying, it's the difference between how you view yourself versus how other people see yourself. You might say, hey, I think I'm really good at talking and giving public presentations, but your advisor might say, wow, like, I think you could improve on this and this. And so if you have that IDP, you're able to make those reflections to understand, are you really good in what you think you are? And are there areas that you may not have thought of that you could also improve on? In this space, we're never going to say that we are really bad at something. I consider it to be more of like a gap or a growing opportunity. So when you compare how you see yourself and how others see you, you're able to find, well, these are the areas where I can grow in, and these are the areas that I'm really good at. So whenever I present myself to a company, I'm going to focus on making sure that I talk about my strength. Like, I'm really good at this, I'm really good at that. But this is the area that I see as a growing opportunity, and this is why I want to work at your company, because you provide software licenses, and I can have one and use that to develop a new skill. And of course, it's also to help you balance what your goals are. You might say, I have 10 goals to meet by the end of the time that I graduate. Well, when you go through building your IDP will help you reflect, is this realistic? Can I actually meet this goal by the time that I say I want to meet it? Or is it more about, hey, I have 10 goals, but the ones that I for sure want to focus on before I graduate is goals 1 through 3. So that's why taking an IDP is helpful to think about those things and reflect, like, where can you improve? What do you want to accomplish? What you're good at? And how do you balance all those goals? So now we'll go through an IDP demo. We're going to walk through the actual one that all the mentoring fellows in the beginning of the slide have worked on. If you want to follow along, we have this tiny URL where you can just scan the QR code and you'll be able to go on the website as well.
Okay, so while you are all getting that open, we are going to actually look at the IDP itself and kind of walk through it for a little bit of a workshop portion. Now that you know why it's so wonderful and important and why you should definitely do it, we're actually going to take a look at how we can accomplish that. I'll give you a minute to pull that up. And while you do, if you were thinking like, I could do this later, maybe I'll just take it. If you stay to the end and fill out a survey for us, which will take less than 5 minutes, probably just 2 or 3 minutes to fill it out quick, just some feedback for us on how the seminar was. We do have $20 Amazon gift cards that we are giving out randomly to people who complete the survey. And on top of that, this is a workshop series. There are 3 more workshops throughout this semester that are focused on mentorship. And the more workshops you go to, the higher your chances are of winning a gift card. So keep coming to these, keep filling out the surveys. It's really helpful for us to know if this was a positive experience or if there's something we can do better. And you can get something out of it as well. So I think that we have, everyone has it open. Anyone have any trouble with it? QR code work with it? Okay, awesome. So it should have taken you to this website here, which is Purdue College of Engineering IDP website. And this just gives you a little bit of background about what is actually in the IDP. It kind of walks through some of the steps. So if someone was visiting this without coming to this workshop, they could see a little bit about what they're about to open up. And there are two versions of the IEP. We offer one, version 1.0 for new students, if this is your first semester or your first year as a grad student. And we have a version 2.0 if you are in your second year or if you're a few years in. If this is your fifth year, you can still start an IDP. It is not too late. It's a good way to get your career goals and everything on track before you graduate. So you can open whichever seems more relevant to you. They are pretty similar. They're just slightly different in the first few pages there. So when you first open it up, and actually I'm going to go to the website, maybe work through it with you guys. And I'm going to go to version 1 and start from the beginning. So on this first page, we talk a little bit about why this is important and why IDPs are actually helpful. And my favorite part of this page here is this nationwide study on postdoctoral researchers. And they found that people who actually completed their IDPs and they kept checking in on them, they had greater satisfaction with their job. They published more papers. They actually got more first author publications by completing an IDP, and they had fewer conflicts with their advisor. So we're not doing this just as another task to do, but it really is helpful for you. And it creates that foundational communication with your advisor so that you're on the same page and can be a little bit more efficient throughout your degree. We also have some questions here at the beginning that you can think through and just a brief overview of the steps. But we will go ahead and get started with step number 1, which is just to take a look at this general timeline. Now, this is a very broad recommendation, but it is certainly okay to be ahead of or behind this timeline. This just offers some suggested goals if you don't know where to start, or if you don't really know what the grad school path looks like for particularly a PhD, although you can apply this to a master's as well, for sure. This just helps with some of the guidelines of, okay, at year 1, what things should I be thinking about? And by year 3, what things should I be looking at that time? So we break it up into categories of learning and research, communication, and career development, as these are 3 of the key pillars to your graduate degree. So I would recommend that you take a look through these, no matter what year you are, to get an idea of where you're at and see if maybe there's some things on here that you want to consider pursuing during the rest of your graduate degree, or if you're happy with where you're at and you don't think you need to add anything, that's fantastic too. So definitely don't look at this and be like, oh my gosh, I'm a 3rd-year student and I don't know any of the things on year 3. That's okay. Everyone's PhD looks different. My PhD has been quite the odd journey, and I definitely didn't follow this track, and that's okay. So just keep in mind that your PhD is unique, and this is just a recommendation or a guideline to take a look at. Step 1 is the self-assessment that Emily talked about earlier. If you are on like a PDF on your laptop, these are clickable, so you can actually go through and click where you think your skills are for each of these. And again, this is good for self-reflection and good to look over with your advisor. So I could say like, man, I think I'm 5 at technical report writing. It's my first year. I nailed it in undergrad and here. Write something, give it to your advisor, and he's like, this is great. Or undergrad, you're in grad school now. So maybe let's bump that score down a little bit and realize that we have some room to grow throughout your graduate degree. So it's good to see where you think you're at and where your advisor thinks you're at and look at opportunities to grow here. And definitely, as Emily said, don't look at it as a negative thing. There are skills on here that I'm at a 1 at for sure, and that's okay. Another thing to note is that if we look at like leadership and classroom management, and some of these things are like preparing a syllabus, managing a course budget. If you know I'm going to go into a national lab, I hate the idea of being a professor, I'm not interested in that, you probably don't need to know how to prepare a syllabus. It's okay if you're at a 1 there and if you stay at a 1. It's probably a good idea to know how to teach something, to know how to convey information to people if you run a seminar or if you're talking to coworkers, but you probably don't need all of these leadership and classroom specific skills. So just keep that in mind as you're going through here. This is a comprehensive IDP. It's meant for you to take and form to your degree. So if there's something on here that doesn't pertain to you, that's perfectly okay. So we have these for several different categories. One I do want to point out here is diversity and inclusion values. This is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's really important, especially if you are looking for a career in academia. Most schools will now require a DEI statement or a diversity statement. And so they want to hear what do you plan to do to have an inclusive classroom? And how do you want to make sure that there's equity among your students? And so this is something important to think about no matter what your workplace is. So this is one that we don't see on a lot of IDPs, but there are some out there, and I would encourage you to really consider this one as well.
Actually, I would say it's not just for academic careers, it's also for industry. Like, I've had several interviews where they were asking me, do you work well with people with different backgrounds? Do you work well with like people who are not technical or technically savvy as you are? So if you can hit some of these, they will always help you.
You are never going to work in a group where everyone is the same as you. It's always going to be a diverse group of people. So having these skills is vital no matter where you end up in your career. So we encourage you to take a look at these, to rate yourself, and then talk over these with your advisor. If it's your first semester, your advisor might not know as well. Like, well, I don't know if they can write a great academic journal article because I haven't seen that yet. But that's something you can work together on and just kind of talk through and point out some skills to them that like, hey, I only have like a 2 on here. I would love to be at a 4 or 5 by the time I graduate, and I don't know how to do that. Ask them how to do that and see what opportunities they might have or ideas for how you can improve on some of these skills. Step number 2, this is the individual development plan for year 1. So if you're on document 2.0, or if you're later in your graduate degree, you can skip this step knowing that your first year is complete. With that being said, you will complete a very similar step. And I believe the document looks the same here, it just says for years 2+. So for this, we want you to take a look at each of those categories. And let's say we look at personal and career development, and you want to know how to attend conferences. If you're like, I've never been to a conference, I've never had that opportunity, you can put that skill in here and then talk about its importance. Well, it's really great to network. It's a good way to disseminate the research that I've conducted and to share my results with people in the academic community. And I would really love to go to a conference and to be in person at one in the next year. It's great to include dates or deadlines on your IDP as well. And then opportunities and goals, maybe, well, there's this really great conference that's in Chicago next spring. And so I'm going to submit an abstract by the deadline, attend that conference, whether it be a poster or an oral presentation. And I'm going to network with, let's say you want to meet at least 5 people that you can form a connection with while you're there. Writing down those things, you're far more likely to do them if you write them down. I talked to a professor who required all of her students to do that before they went to a conference. And she said that it significantly helped them. Like, oh man, she's going to check on me when I get back, so I got to go network. And then they really appreciated the fact that they actually went and networked more than they would have. So write down those goals. There are some examples here. If you're having trouble seeing like what should the format look like or how should I do this, let's say that you want to improve your statistical analysis skills. Everyone in research has to do statistics on what results they've received. So this is important. It should be included in journal publications. Stat 511 is like statistical methods. It's like the basic graduate stat class here. So maybe you want to take that and earn an A so that you feel prepared to conduct your statistical analyses. And maybe to continue on with that, you pick another stats class and you want to do that in the next couple of years. Writing down those goals can be really helpful to make sure that you actually achieve them. And then we provide some space here. There is a title at the top of the recommended, communication skills or research and scientific skills. And these are also, you can fill these in. So if your skill here is oral presentations, if that's what you want to work on, you can talk about the importance of that. Oops, probably not your only goal. You can talk about the importance of it, why you want to improve upon that, and then some opportunities to do so. A lot of departments have a seminar for like first year grad students. Maybe you can contact whoever's in charge of that and say like, hey, I would love 20 minutes to present my research, give me a chance to practice my oral presentation skills, and also a really great opportunity to answer questions and to practice taking questions after a presentation. So maybe you can do that. And you can fill this out for each of the categories, which is probably not oral presentations for everything. But you can fill those in as needed with leadership and classroom management, which again, if you are like set on industry or a national lab or whatever it may be that doesn't involve classroom management, maybe you just focus on the leadership skills here, the ability to lead a team of engineers, or the ability to oversee or manage a project. So again, this should fit to your PhD and not someone else's. So feel free to fill these boxes with whatever you want. And if it doesn't fit with something on here, you can write in your own, and that's perfectly fine too. We have diversity and inclusion values, which again, we really recommend no matter what career path that you look at those, research and scientific skills, personal and career development. And then finally, we have one page at the end here, which can be used for any additional goals. There's no header here, and you can feel free to copy this page and make 10 of them if you have a lot more goals that you want to write down. Step 3, advisor-student meeting. So now you fill this out. You've done a self-assessment of your skills. You've taken a look at the timeline and seen, okay, approximately where do I want to be at right now? You have filled out some goals and why they're important and some specific steps to get there. And now you want to meet with your mentor. This is a really key step, and it's probably the hardest one, but it's really important. So we have a little bit of a note here about your mentor and about you as a mentee and what your responsibilities are. And Emily talked about that a little bit. So I'll skip over the paragraphs here, but this is a good reminder to serve as your job and what their job is. And then we ask quite a few questions in terms of setting guidelines. So what courses do I need to take? What's required? What do you recommend? My advisor recommended a couple of courses that I didn't know existed because they were kind of hard to find in the course catalog, but they were incredibly helpful for my research. So I would highly recommend asking, like, hey, do you have a professor, or do you know a professor, a friend of yours on campus that teaches a course that could be helpful for me, and see if they have anything for you. What is the expectation for balancing coursework and research responsibilities? This is huge, and it probably will change. Your first year, at least in my department and some of the ones I've spoken with, the first year is really focused on courses and kind of getting familiar with your lab and getting accustomed to the research environment. And then as you hit maybe year 3 or 4, you're done with coursework. You don't have any time spent on courses at that point unless you may be TAing. And so you focus a lot on research. So this is one that can be revisited over time, but really important to see what their expectations are so that you're meeting those expectations and you're on the same page. And the questions continue on, and you're welcome to read through all of these and answer them with your advisor. A couple important ones are meetings. It's really important to check in and make sure that you're on the same page. So how often do you meet? Is it always as a group, or can we have one-on-one meetings? How many people do I have to meet with? Do I need to meet with funders, with my committee? It's important to be on the same page about those expectations. Any safety training? I know there's some people that probably do like coding or software, probably less important to do safety training, but are there any like tutorials or online trainings I need to go through, or any like responsible conduct of research training, those RCR seminars? What expectations does your advisor have? And we go through similar questions for professional development. And then this moves on for years 2+. So step 4 here is our final step. And this is just to kind of update over time. So research and scientific skills. Sorry. What have you done in the past year to improve upon your research and scientific skills? And you can use this space to say, well, I learned 2 new methods of analyzing my data. I presented at a conference and was able to talk about my research, and I got an opportunity to expand upon my project. I published a paper, whatever it might be, you can put that here. And then your goals for the upcoming year. Maybe you want to publish another paper. Maybe you want to achieve X number of experiments, whatever it is, you can write that here in this space so that it's written down somewhere so that you can actively keep track of whether or not you're meeting these goals. And we have this same for all of the categories for communication skills, leadership and classroom management, diversity and inclusion, personal and career development, and that is all for those updates. So I would encourage you to keep going back to this every year and updating your goals. And then finally, at the end of your meeting, if you have any additional notes or there wasn't a space that felt right to use prior to this, this is the last page of our document. You are welcome to add any notes here from your meeting with your advisor. And we do offer an optional signatures at the end. Some advisors like to have that signature and that date in place, everything written down and recorded. Other advisors are like, no, we don't need to sign off on anything, that's fine. And both of those are acceptable options. It's just whatever works for you and your mentor. That is the end of the actual IDP document itself.
So a little recap, you might be like, whoa, those are so many pages to fill in. Well, going back to what our goal as graduate mentorship fellows, it's really just to improve the mentorship relationships students have with the faculty members on campus, because I could bet that not a single student here will tell me my advisor is perfect. And we learned that sometimes those issues that come out as we're students can be traced back to just simply that in the beginning, we didn't know what we wanted. We didn't know what to expect from that relationship or that mentor that we were going to work with. We didn't know what they expected out from us. And so this is just a tool that our team created to help you identify what are your goals and have a communication tool to have those discussions with your advisor. Your advisor might thank you later and say, hey, like, when did you consider this? Like, why didn't we talk about it before? And you can be like, well, I finally worked on my IDP. So that's why it's here to help you. It's not something that we want to add on to your work. And it's not something you have to go home right now and fill in. It's something that you have to think about throughout the time that you're here. And it just helps to say the sooner sometimes the better, because when is your next advising meeting? What is something that you want to talk about and you haven't been able to because you sometimes didn't even think about it. And so that's what we're hoping, that this will improve your mentorship relationships, that it'll help you have a better relationship with your advisor. And for all of the faculty members on campus, we're hoping that because we're training you and helping you on how to have better conversations with them, that they will also understand better what are your needs and how to help you much better than what they currently are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to share a quick story from my own experience, I had switched advisors at one point in my PhD, and I was very used to the progress reports that my first advisor had done with me. And so I knew how to report everything to him, and I had a method and a structure for it. And then I went to my new advisor and provided her with an update. She was like, where's your hypothesis? And I was like, oh, I put it in this paragraph here. And she's like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't explicitly stated, so I didn't notice it. And she was like, hey, where's this thing? And I was like, oh, it's in there. It's on the 3rd page. And she was like, okay. And I was like, wait, what do you want your reports to look like? Because I don't know what I'm looking for. And she missed a few things in there that I'd included, but hadn't included in a way that was evident to her. And so we sat down and talked about it, and she helped me work through, this is what I want to see from you. I want these sections, these headers. This is what I want in each section of it. And so the next time I sent her a report, she was like, oh my gosh, everything is in here. This is exactly what I was looking for. And so just having that conversation, and that's one of the questions on the IDP is, what do progress reports look like, and how do I update you on the data that I have gathered? If we'd had that conversation sooner, we wouldn't have had those back and forth conversations of like being really confused with each other on where everything was in that document. So the IDP is meant to help you. It's meant to prevent all of that confusion. It's made to make your PhD or your master's degree more efficient, and for you to meet your goals on time, how you would like to meet them.
Yeah, a little note I would add on that signature, like we said, it's not mandatory, it's not required. But if, like, speaking from experience, if your advisor is very busy or has just a lot more students that they're co-advising at the same time as you, have you ever noticed that if you talk about one thing during one meeting and then you come back to another meeting and then they completely forget what they said last time? That helps. That's why you have that signature, to hold them accountable for what you already discussed previously.
Yeah, it's a great way to hold you both accountable. So that way, if you're kind of falling behind and slacking a little bit, they can say, hey, we had talked about this in the IDP that I want weekly updates from you, or I want bi-weekly updates from you. And it goes the other way as well. You're like, hey, I haven't met with you in 3 weeks, and we had talked about having weekly one-on-one meetings. Can you create some space in your schedule for me? Because we talked about this in the IDP, and it's really important for me to be able to talk with you on my project. This helps prepare you for that conversation and gives you a way to say, like, let's set these standards now so we don't have to worry about it or feel nervous about talking about these things later on. So that is the end of our presentation. We did leave about 20 minutes for questions. I will say just a quick, we do have 3 more of these set up for the semester. The next one is October 4th. We have a guest speaker who is fantastic, and she is going to come and talk about navigating toxic environments. So what goes on when your advisor maybe is not treating you how you feel you should be treated, or what if your committee members are not treating you well? What if other grad students in your group or a postdoc is creating a toxic environment? How do you handle that in a professional manner in a way that you feel more comfortable? And then we also have 2 additional seminars, one on building healthy mentorship relationships, and then one on diversity and inclusion and mentorship. So again, The more of these that you attend, the more likely you are to receive a gift card, but more importantly, the more likely you are to have a successful mentoring relationship with your advisor during your graduate degree. So I would strongly recommend you attend as many as you can. I think a lot of you probably already did the QR code for an interest in attending these. If you want to do it again for any upcoming seminars that you haven't checked off, that would be fantastic. And I will leave this QR code up for the survey while we answer any questions you have.
I have two questions. Are these files gonna, like this, webpage that you share with us, is gonna be, permanent thing?
Yes,
Okay.
it might like maybe change over time. We might
Okay.
add one specific for masters in the future, but in general, this page will be available to you.
And second, it's more like, do you think that in the future you might include like, personal and emotional intelligence in there? Because I think that's something that is being navigated more into industry maybe than that. And they are do that kind of, personal intelligence or emotional intelligence assessments. So you can understand why other people behave like that, or why kind of things might not have or trigger bad relationship with different personalities.
So I think that's such a good thing to bring up. For our IDP, we didn't think about that, but that's why we have this graduate seminar series, because we thought about how many things actually contribute to these relationships. And if you attend our upcoming seminar, that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how maybe someone may be speaking a certain way and you take it in an offensive way, but maybe they didn't see that. They didn't acknowledge that that's how they were making you feel. And how can you take control of that situation? Our speaker is from Princeton, really good at this type of work. So I would highly suggest coming to our next seminar. If you feel like you're having a conflict with your advisor or anyone else in your group of research, there are some other resources. So if you look up I think there's like a general mentorship website. There's like exactly that. You can report anonymously. The problem gets raised up to, I believe, the team of the dean of the college. And then they will talk with not directly the person, but they will bring up whoever supervisor of that person is. So we're hoping that like if that happens, fill it out, speak up. You're not here alone. That's why we noticed, hey, there's a group of students who are saying our mentorship relationships can be improved. That's why we're trying to change that. We're trying to make them better. And so hopefully in the future, one of our iterations to IDP is to do that.
Well, I didn't mean it in a concerning way. I just mean it in like in general. For instance, when you're working in your group, there's people that like to work in, for instance, they like to get reports and that kind of thing. They need certain environments to work. There are other people that are more relaxed. And when you understand how your fellows work, that's helping you work with them better. That kind of thing is what I mean, not necessarily with something having conflicts with them.
Oh, so you can make expectations?
And they're gonna be personalities.
I think so. One thing that's on this is the first page of the IDP on here. One of the steps that we recommend you do is complete this My IDP. And this is just a resource that we have not created, but that we do recommend for you. And I believe that this does go through some more of that, like your personal working methods, like how you prefer to work, what sort of environment. So I think this might be a good tool if that's something that you're interested in. And even if you're not, I would recommend it. It's a really great way. It helps you put together like what careers would be great for you, and it helps you set those goals in another format that's a little different from our IDP. So that's one thing that I would recommend. I will say on top of what Emily mentioned, there is an anonymous reporting link. So if you feel like your advisor is forcing you to work 80 hours a week on your project, or if they haven't met with you in 2 months and refuse to reply to your emails, or if you have some sort of situation where you're like, I don't think my advisor is mentoring me in a way that is efficient and helpful and healthy, you can report that. You can choose to report it anonymously, or you can choose to add your name to it if you would like to be followed up with. And that goes to way higher ups at the graduate school, the dean of the graduate school, Stephen, I believe, is on that committee, and they will take that, it's confidential, but they will take that and work with it and make sure that the issue is resolved.
Quick plug there. We also have a separate College of Engineering graduate student only anonymous reporting tool for anything that you feel like is really specific that needs to be addressed at the college level. If it's anything to deal with your experience as a graduate student, things that you've seen in your lab, or things that you're experiencing with your advisor-student relationship, really anything goes on there, and you have the option for it to be completely anonymous with nothing traced back to you. You also have an option on there that if you do want to have somebody follow up with you, you can add your name if you'd like, and contact information as well. And we do monitor those as they come in, and address those on a case-by-case basis. So if we do have a student that wants us to get back in touch with them, then we bring that one's priority up and address how we can make that situation a lot better. So that's on our College of Engineering graduate education page, and several other places it's found in the margins as well. For anybody that's online, that's in the chat right now as well. But that's one that's just for our College of Engineering group, and it doesn't have to go all the way up to the graduate school or anything like that. Can be handled much more directly as well. But both options are really good. Just depends on what your situation is. And always, if you have anything as a student that you want to reach out about, you can also contact me directly about those things. So that's always my email address as well. So we can talk later if you need to get that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's more of a curiosity question, but I was just wondering if there's like a similar seminar to this that's geared towards faculty members.
There is, we're trying, so if you look at our flyer and you say, hey, maybe my advisor should come to this seminar topic, invite them. We're actually opening the rest of our seminars to faculty members. We didn't necessarily open this one up because the IDP is something more of a student responsibility. Your advisor will just go over it, have a conversation with you about it. But the rest of them, we will talk about them from both perspectives. So if you look at, for example, our building healthy mentorship relationships, we're going to have a panel of both faculty members and students come in, because we want to make sure that faculty members also understand how to evaluate themselves. Sometimes we think my advisor is great, but maybe they're not if you look at it from a different perspective. And for themselves, it might be the same thing. They might think, hey, I'm a great advisor, and then they hear from other people and it's like, oh, I don't really do that. So that's what we're hoping to address. We also have in the back of our word, we also have a faculty survey. We're actually trying to first assess what those relationships look like from a faculty member point of view. What do they think is important for your advising relationship, to then understand what resources can we provide for them to improve their way of advising.
Yeah, I would say like those other seminars are great, but I think it was still, even if it's just like a small section of another one that's geared specifically towards faculty, but talking about like the IDP, it's obviously more on the shoulders of the student, but still like one, promoting it to faculty members, and two, how can the faculty members support like the IDP for the student? Maybe this is cool.
So I know that faculty members, if they want to achieve tenure at Purdue, which is the goals of faculty member here, they do have to attend a mentorship seminar that's like, I want to say it's like 2.5 hours maybe, at some point before they apply for tenure. Preferably, I think it's within their like first year and a half, they should be going to it. And I do think a portion of that talks about an IDP. We've just rolled this out like August. This is the first semester that we've introduced the IDP specific to the College of Engineering. So we have talked with some of the administrators for that and said, like, can we step in on it and hear what the training looks like? Can we see some slides? Can we maybe recommend a couple other things from a student perspective that should be included in there? So we are trying to have an impact on that. And the IDP would be a good portion of that. Like we talk to them about how they should be using it, that they should recommend it to their students, that sort of thing. We do have the support of like the dean of the graduate school on this. She's really happy about the IDP. She mentioned it in like her talk to grad students, her video at the beginning of the semester. So we are trying to get this implemented more. But thank you for that idea. We're getting started and we're happy for ideas of how we can best support faculty. Any other questions?
No additional questions online. Certainly anybody that has one that's joining us here, you're welcome to enter it in on the chat as well. Does anybody have any questions on how they would implement this or anything that doesn't make sense on how to fill it out online or any of the things about this maybe?
I have a general question.
Mhm.
So the beginning part of the self-evaluation, is there a part where are you like sharing that aspect with your advisor or other mentor to sort of get that opposite reaction to be like, I know I'm self-evaluating myself, but do you agree with like is there where's that is that the talking point or is it actually an opportunity for you to also do that evaluation? Maybe where there's alignment on that. So that's a great question.
From my perspective, I would say it's up to you. My department had an IDP last year where everyone in the department was required to have one, and we didn't use the College of Engineering one. They used one from like University of Madison. It was messy. It had questions that I was like, this doesn't make sense for someone at Purdue. But what I did was I took the assessment by myself. And then when I was talking to my advisor, I showed him how I scaled myself. And that's when we were having that conversation of, well, why did you pick this number instead of that number? And I would say, well, I have done this and I feel like maybe I still have room for growth. And he would be like, well, I actually think you do a good job at that. So maybe we should bump up that score. Or there were areas where I was like, I rated myself very high and he would be like, well, Emily, like, I appreciate you and all, but maybe we should bump the score a little bit down. And here's something that you can use to like improve on that. Or you can use it the opposite way of what I did and say, hey, like, I don't really understand how I should assess myself in this because I never really thought about it. So maybe it's more about learning how others see you first. And then thinking maybe when you go back to the IDP at the end of the year or something and think, well, now how do I rate myself? Now knowing what this means and how my advisor sees me, do I agree with them? And if I don't, then maybe that will spark another conversation to have. Or it might be you agree with them and so now you're going to focus on something.
Again, we want you to fit the IDP to what works best for you and your advisor. So you can kind of go about it however you want. If you wanted to say like, hey, I'm going to fill out this self-assessment, could you also fill one out of how you see me? And then we'll compare and see like areas that I need to improve in, or maybe some areas I thought I was great at and maybe need to take a couple opportunities to grow there, or something that you kind of thought you weren't great at. And he's like, no, you've done a wonderful job with this. So you can use that however you want. We do just recommend at least going through it on your own to see areas where maybe you hadn't thought about, but when you read it, you're like, oh, I'm a 2 and I would love to be a 5. So it's just to help you think about areas to grow. And you can talk with your advisor in the way that's most comfortable and helpful for you.
Or maybe for like the topic, going back to careers. I know that when I was in my first year, I thought, I don't really know what career I want. I barely know that I want to have this PhD. Well, looking at the questions on the IDP, I could have, if I would have had an IDP when I was in first year, I probably would have thought, maybe if I do an internship, I'll try out what industry looks like. And if I sign up as a TA, I'll figure out what it feels like to teach and then compare those. Next year, when I come back to the IDP, well, I understand how to assess myself. Now I know what my goals are. Your goal might be in the beginning to say, I just want to try things out. So then come back and think about this.
Good questions. Do we have any more?
Not really a question, just like a comment. Is there any chance you guys can fix the on the PDF, like when you type in that one line and showed up on all the stuff?
Yeah, I'll look into that and make sure that that gets updated. And yeah, we'll also have the slides available to everybody. So I'll be emailing out a recording of the workshop if anybody wants to view it later, or if you have your advisor or lab mate or somebody who wants to view it that wasn't able to join us, as well as those resources that we talked about. So
I would say I had personally like tested out the PDF, and when I downloaded it, it didn't do that. So I don't know if maybe it's just a web error. We'll still try to fix it, but maybe downloading it will help. I will say on top of Stephen's comment, if you filled out the entrance form and like registered for this, you will get a copy of the slides and the recording. If you did not and you showed up today, that's fantastic. We're really happy you're here. But if you would like that information, just come up to the front before you leave and give us your email so that we can make sure that you get a copy of everything.
And if there are no more questions, but you definitely have ideas for us on how to keep making these mentorship relationships better for you and for your students to come, please fill out the survey.
Again, we didn't mention this earlier, the survey is anonymous, so we will not know who you are, but then when you complete the survey, you get a link to another survey to put your name. So once you have completed the survey, then we'll see your name and it's not attached to any of your answers. So if you're like, this was not helpful, it was terrible, please tell us that, because we want to know and improve upon it for you. So the survey is anonymous, but then you have the opportunity to enter your information separately to get the gift card. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really glad to see you all here. I hope that this was helpful, and please take some more snacks and coffee on the way out and have a good rest of your week.